You know that person who just shuts down the moment something hurts them? No yelling, no drama, no angry texts. They just go silent. Yeah, I think that person might be you. And look, everyone around you probably calls it being cold or closed off or whatever, but honestly, science sees it completely differently, and I think once you hear this, it's going to hit pretty close to home. So stay with me for the next few minutes, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand something about yourself that most people spend their entire lives never figuring out. So here's what people always get wrong about you. When you go quiet, they assume you're punishing them, like you're playing some kind of game using silence as a weapon. And that's probably one of the most frustrating things you deal with, right? Because you know the truth. You're not quiet because you want to hurt someone. You're quiet because you're the one who's hurting, and you just don't know how to make that safe to show. There's a huge difference between weaponized silence and wounded silence, and barely anyone bothers to figure out which one they're actually looking at. Now here's where it gets interesting. Psychologist Robert Levinson found that some people's nervous systems are literally wired to shut inward under emotional pain instead of expressing outward. And Bowlby, the guy who basically wrote the book on attachment science, showed that how we handle pain as adults is almost always an echo of what felt safe to feel as kids. So when you go quiet, that silence has a whole history behind it. Think about it. When you were a kid and you were upset, what actually happened when you showed it? For most people who turn into the quiet when hurt type, one of a few things went down. Either the adults around you just didn't have the capacity to hold your pain, so you felt like a burden. Or someone told you, stop crying, you're too sensitive, so you learned feelings are something you deal with privately. Or your environment was just unpredictable enough that being vulnerable sometimes made things worse. So your brain made a really smart call. It said, I'm going to process this alone. I'm not handing my open wound to someone who might not handle it carefully. Smart move then. The question is just whether it's still working for you now. And look, I want to reframe some stuff real quick, because the story most quiet people carry is that something is wrong with them. But flip it. When you go quiet instead of exploding, that's not coldness, that's regulation. You're choosing not to say things you can't take back. When you shut down instead of escalating, that's not avoidance, that's protection. And when you hold your pain instead of weaponizing it, that's not manipulation, that's integrity. You have a code even when you're hurting, especially when you're hurting. But here's the part that actually stings, and I'm just going to say it straight. The very thing that protects you can also isolate you. You go quiet, the other person reads it as indifference, they pull away, and that confirms your oldest fear, that being vulnerable wasn't safe. So next time you go even quieter, it's a loop, man, a really painful one. And the cruel part is, you're probably the most loyal, most thoughtful person in the room, but the silence makes you look like the most distant one. You're not distant, you're guarded. Those are two completely different things. So here's all I want you to take from this. You don't need to be fixed. You don't need to become someone who processes everything out loud. You just need permission to recognize that your silence was never nothing. It was always grief and dignity and a kind of quiet strength most people can't even access. The goal isn't to stop going quiet. The goal is to find the people where going quiet doesn't have to mean going alone. If this video described you in a way that felt almost uncomfortably accurate, there's a lot more where that came from. Subscribe, because this channel is built for people who think deeply about who they are and why, and you clearly belong here.